Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, guess what?
We back.
That's right. We're back with another episode. And Nadia, I'm so excited about tonight.
Okay, I literally pitched this idea months ago to this amazing woman in my life. Her name is Kaz Santana. And I was like, does she forget? Is she going to want to do this? Is she not going to want to do this? And then I asked again and she was like, yeah, girl, I'm down. I was like, yes. So here we are with Kaz Santana today.
Welcome to the show.
Hi.
How are you?
This all sounds like a party.
It's a party. She is an actress. She is an acting coach. She is amazing.
A business owner.
A business owner. She is a badass.
A do-it-all.
I love everything about what she does and stands for. So
Wow, what an introduction.
we're excited to have you.
We are. Thank you for joining us
Of
today.
course. Thank you for having me.
We figured what song can create that party vibe? Saxophone.
All
Saxophone
day.
solo.
You guys, come on.
So we always love diving in with just kind of learning about your story. Like what about the entertainment biz is it for you? What brought you out here? And just kind of dive in right in the middle. What do you think, babe?
Yeah, and then we kind of will branch out and then kind of see where it goes.
Cool. Well, I was born in Puerto Rico.
Awesome.
Just because every Puerto Rican has to start off that way.
Right.
So there it is. I was born in Puerto Rico. I've always wanted to pursue acting. I always knew since I was a child. And my parents were not that supportive about it. So I majored in business.
How did you have the dream if it didn't come from like a family source?
I don't know.
Did you?
I really don't.
Did you have like American, like, I don't know, don't want to sound dumb, but like what kind of shows did you watch growing up? Did you watch a lot of Spanish speaking stuff or?
So I went to an American school.
Okay.
So we did have cable and I did watch certain shows, but there's a lot of shows and stuff that people reference that I have no idea about.
Yeah.
Because I was born in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So 16 Candles, never have seen it. There's certain stuff that I haven't seen, but I did watch Who's the Boss?
Awesome.
Yes.
And I remember I always wanted to be Judith Light, the woman.
Yeah,
As
of
everybody
course.
wanted to be like Alyssa Milano, and I was like,
No.
F
I want to
her.
be that blonde.
No.
I
girl.
want to be the boss lady.
Yeah.
I love
I
it.
swear to God, I always looked up to her.
And totally feel free to curse if you
Oh,
like.
great.
Yeah.
I was hoping that I could curse.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta let her know because
So yeah, I've always wanted to pursue that. Actually, it's funny. My parents used to take me to Disney every year.
Awesome.
And one of the things
Which one? The one in Orlando? Or?
Yeah, the one in Orlando from Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Yeah, every
Yeah.
year it was like the thing to do. And we did so Universal Studios had this new thing where you could do a video
Uh-huh.
and you could sing along or whatever.
yeah.
So I did
Yes.
I did what's her name? Debbie
Forever, my
Gibson,
girl.
Electric Youth. And I remember going back after our vacation and telling my teacher, by the way, I went to a very religious school, but they were still really cool. I told Mr. Segul over recess, I'm like, hey, Mr. Segul, so we went to Disney and I have this tape because there was a cassette tape or whatever at that time. And I was like, I did this video. Can you play it for
Was
the
it a
class?
videotape or like just
Yeah,
sound?
they recorded.
They recorded with a green screen.
Oh,
and you're
yes.
dancing along and stuff, and there's all kinds of craziness going
love
on
it.
in the background. And I asked him to play it like after recess.
Yeah.
So I mean, how funny is it that I don't know, third grader or fourth grader is like bringing the tape along for everybody to watch this thing, and me just like watching it and being like,
You're like, you guys want to know what I did on my vacay?
yeah.
And
I think ever since I was a child, I've always sort of wanted to perform.
Yeah.
And I guess those videos are my first self-tapes.
that's amazing.
Which is hilarious.
So did you go to business school out there?
I went to business school in Florida.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, what part of Florida?
Tallahassee, FSU.
Yeah. No one's perfect. I was a Gator fan.
No, it's all good. I'm totally fine with all of it.
Same. I actually worked at Disney World as well.
Oh, what did you do?
I was Goofy.
No.
Yeah, I was.
I was a jungle skipper.
Yeah?
So, you know, the
Really? What year were you there?
let's see, graduated, I'm not gonna say that, and then probably 97, 98.
Awesome.
Yeah, you were probably,
Just a few years earlier than me, but not far.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it. You did
Yeah.
the Jungle Cruise.
I did the Jungle
That's a
Cruise.
coveted job.
Yes. Well, and there were certain jokes that you weren't supposed to say,
Uh-huh.
but I said them anyway. For example, I would say in the beginning, be like, "Hello, my name is Cassandra, and I'm going to be your skipper for the day."
They're like,
Yeah,
You're
they
like,
were like
"What?"
that exactly.
I
Not-
love it.
Not really G for general audience. and
except
stuff.
especially for Disney.
Exactly.
Mom, what's a stripper?
I know.
Honey, I'll tell you later.
Yeah, exactly.
So you find yourself in the home of the Seminoles.
Yes, so I'm
For school.
there. I went to business school. My parents were not having the whole acting thing.
Were
I-
you an only child?
Well, my sister and I are 9 years apart.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm not an only child, but I sort of was raised as an only child, and so
Yeah.
was she, because I left when she was, you know.
Yeah.
But I did take my first acting class there
In college?
in FSU. Yeah, and I remember that being kind of formative. And then I moved to New York, and I got a job at Macy's.
Of course.
As an assistant buyer. They only hire like 20 people, and they go throughout the whole United States, and I was one of the people that was selected.
Oh, no
That's
way.
awesome.
Yeah, and
I also work for Macy's.
what?
I know. I was like, what is happening? I did the overnight shift
Loading.
That's
and I did it
Missed
for like 4 weeks. No lie. I hated that job.
Did you work at Cheesecake Factory too? Because if you did, then that's it.
I didn't, but I so wish I did.
No, you don't.
I
You did
don't.
work at
No,
Cold
you
Stone.
I did work at Cold Stone
Oh my
and
God.
another restaurant, but I was like, man, Cheesecake Factory, you can have cheesecake all the time.
It's terrible. Don't even. It was like I cried every day when I used to go to work. But I did cry at Macy's as well because I was terrible at that job.
And this was in New York.
In New York, and it was the corporate offices, and
Yeah.
it was way more analytical than I expected it to be.
Oh, boy.
I got fired from it.
Like, bye.
Yeah, it was. I was the person who put the discounts or the sales,
Yeah.
and I was not very detailed oriented. That job just took me to New York, which was my dream. So it was whatever job would take me to New
Yeah.
York was the job that I was going to take. So it was perfect. But then I went there, and then I had to do the job.
You're like, oh.
So I realized that I like to act like things, but I don't necessarily want to do them.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, I
Totally.
can act like an
Yeah.
analyst, but I don't want to be an
Totally.
analyst.
I wanted to dress the part and stuff, and then I'm like, oh wait, I gotta like turn in sheets and stuff.
Like,
So yeah, but I put a lot of stuff on sale that shouldn't have been on sale. Like it was
people were like, score. And they
I
were
was about
like,
to say.
no.
there was a leather jacket that we would only sell like, I don't know, 30 units a week. And I put it on sale instead of for $19 off at $19, and it was a leather jacket.
Oh, girl,
Oh
somebody
my
came up. A lot of people came up.
We sold 56 units in a couple of hours, and I guarantee you it was all the people that worked there that were like,
Exactly.
And their discount.
yeah. So it got to the point where I was so miserable, and I just had a conversation with my father, who was very adamant that I don't pursue acting because he was concerned about my career. I mean, being Latina and being somebody who comes from, we're a middle class family.
Yeah.
They're always concerned about you doing better than the last generation.
And your
Yeah.
future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And acting isn't necessarily guaranteed. So they were
What?
concerned about
It's
that.
not a real job, I guess.
Exactly.
That's news to me.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And so I told, I had a real, honest conversation, and he was like, okay, do it. And it literally changed my relationship with my dad.
Wow.
It went from essentially like father daughter to like, instead of him being above me, it felt very
That conversation.
conversation,
peer.
and our relationship became more of a peer
Yeah.
and somebody that I could just come to, as opposed to like my father. Does that
Which,
make
yeah, that
sense?
totally changes because you almost have like even like a vulnerability that you're willing to like with parents sometimes, especially coming from a Latin home. With my mom is still pretty strict now. It's so you kind of like broke through that.
Yes.
Where like I get it. It's like there's things now that I don't even want to tell my mom because it's like, what is the point? Versus like feeling like, hey, like I want to tell you this thing, whether it's for support or just to vent, or like you might even give me some good counsel. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, it was probably one of the most transformative conversations I've ever had, and especially with my dad. And it just changed our relationship to just it being open and supportive, and not of somebody who's above me, but somebody who's just with me in this journey. And it was really,
Because
really,
did your
really
folks
cool.
stay in Puerto Rico when came out to New York, or did they ever move to
No,
the States?
they lived in Orlando
Oh, okay.
because they
Hey.
love Disney so much. They just had to move
They're
there.
like, we're moving there now.
The only road I remember over there is the 535. Was it close to the 535?
I don't remember the 535. Maybe it's called like something else. I don't know.
Probably was.
Wait, you mean in Orlando?
Hmm.
Yeah. And so much of it has changed. Every time I go, I'm like, I have no idea where I'm at now.
I know, right?
It's really wild.
It's crazy. When's the last time you've been, babe?
I to di-
The Disney
I
World.
used to live in Florida for like 8 months,
Oh, cool.
but no, I don't. It's been years.
What part of Florida?
Boynton Beach, South.
cool.
Oh, girl, it's like old people town. I was like, get me out of here. I'm a SoCal girl, so when I moved there, I was like,
oh God.
oh
yeah, yeah.
no,
No.
oh no, I gotta go back. That's
For
my
sure,
mission.
For sure.
I was like, peace out.
So you find yourself in Macy's, hating it.
Hating life.
New York,
Yeah.
the city of dreams.
Did
Correct.
you want to go to
Exactly.
New York because if you thought like theater, acting?
Yeah, I just equated New York to acting. So that's why I wanted to move there. And what's interesting is that one of my business teachers, I remember her telling her that I got the job in New York, and she was like, "You don't feel like a New York girl to me. You feel more like a California girl." I still remember that, and I was like, "Oh," and I was like, "She's wrong about that. I'm a
Watch
New York
me.
girl."
Watch me
Exactly.
thrive.
Exactly.
So you get to New York, you lose the job. What's the next step for you?
The next step was to find a job so I could survive.
An expensive ass New York.
Exactly. And get an agent and all that, do all that stuff. But I also thought if I'm going to set roots somewhere, it's going to be, and California is where I need to be. I didn't want to be in New York for too long and try to create relationships and then move to,
Because then you'd have to do it again.
exactly.
Yeah.
So within a couple, maybe probably 7 months, not even, maybe 6 months after I got fired, I moved to New York, to LA. But I ended up working at Sutton Place, which was this bar in the Upper East Side, to save money. And I saved like $15,000 in one summer.
No
Oh,
way.
wow.
You were working your ass
I
off.
was working my ass off. I did this thing called landmark education, and it was also like really impactful in my drive and my clarity as to where I was going. And it really helped me just put pedal to the metal. Is that how you guys
Like
say?
focus. Yeah. Like you really made you focus and like go for it,
Yeah.
which is awesome because a lot of people have plans, visions, dreams, but like no direction and like no, I don't know if it's ambition. It's like you said, it's just putting one foot in front of the other and getting it done.
One of the greatest things that happened was like getting fired,
Yeah.
because I always was waiting for all the ducks to be in a row. I always said, okay, when I have X amount of money in my bank account, I'm going to do this. When I have,
Yeah.
this and that, that's when I'm going to pursue my dreams and things like that. And by getting fired, all of that had to go out the window, and I had to, I couldn't put all the ducks in a row because
Yeah.
all the ducks were dead.
There were no ducks. It was like duck hunt. All,
So
they
I
were
was like,
shot.
Okay, then I might as well pursue what I really want to do. And sometimes when you don't have a cushy mattress to fall back on,
Yeah.
it really sets some.
I think that's always like I mean I don't know well and I'm sure we'll get to it, but I think one of the things that I regret, even though I feel like it's a lesson learned, is for so many years when I first started acting, it was that mentality of like waiting to like here's the thing,
To go all in.
yeah, it's like at some point, yes, you probably should have like some knowledge of what's happening. You want to go in so green that you don't even know what your name is and like what's happening.
Totally.
But there's also a point that at some point you have to jump, because even if you have you'll figure it out as you go along,
Totally.
right?
And then there's other people that I'm like, you should probably,
Wait.
Hold your horses.
yeah. That's also.
That's
the
also
other
very
side of
yes.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's funny because I've taken some classes at Groundlings where it's like intermediate, and then I'm like, how did you even get to intermediate? Like the acting is just so it's like you need just to go take a basic like acting
Totally.
101. Like you just need to even sound like you believe what you're saying.
Totally.
And you know, it just depends on like sometimes people have more of a natural gifting for
Totally.
stuff, right?
I definitely think acting is a skill. The more that I do it and the more that I see it, I'm like, this is a skill.
Yeah.
But there's people that just have a natural, the way their brain works, they already see things and patterns a certain way. But if you do work on it consistently, you will get better at it.
Yeah.
Period.
Period.
So
Yeah.
you find yourself out in LA now, 15 grand saved
Like I got
in a summer. What's your
Yeah.
first steps?
So the first steps were looking for a job because I'm very, I like to be financially safe. It
Yeah.
scares me to not be.
Do you think that came from your growing up life?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
My Latino parents. You know what I mean? My parents also, my dad was an entrepreneur. So I think that also runs within my blood and stuff. But also there's stuff that happened with business partners and things like that that made me feel like I need to be safe because you don't know what will happen in the future, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came here. I worked I worked in a gym. I taught Pilates.
No way.
Yeah, I taught Pilates. Did you teach Pilates?
I didn't. I was just
well,
gonna be like,
damn
what?
it.
No.
But I can.
Give me a
But
minute.
you, because you know now.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
you're in
Now
the-
they with the workouts.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's right.
Hey.
So I used to go to people's houses and do Pilates. So I did whatever I could, and one job that I ended up getting that I think also has worked in my favor with line runners which is I do self tapes and coaches and stuff, is it's a nonprofit with Tony Plana. Do you know who he is? He's an actor. He was in Ugly Betty.
I feel like I know who he is. Does he have kind of curly hair a little bit or
He's
black?
an older gentleman.
Okay, no.
He was in Three Amigos.
Ah,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. So he had a nonprofit that would go to different schools, and we taught a program for little kids in which we would teach them through plays and stuff like that and acting the structure of, you know, a paragraph, like beginning, middle, and end, and a climax and the resolution and stuff like that. And they would write their own plays and things like that.
That's so cool.
I love that job, but it also taught me how to teach.
For sure.
So that was and I really enjoyed it. And we used to put plays together and all that. So that I feel was a way that I learned how to teach.
Isn't that cool though? Because you did that and then it like served you like
Had no
Yeah.
idea that it was going to
Yeah,
serve
exactly,
me later. It
exactly.
was just sort of happening. But you got to sort of know how to put the dots together, and if you do, then you can parlay it into other things.
for
right?
sure.
So I was with Howard Talent West first. Were you with them?
I feel like I was or I met with them because I know that freaking agency back in the day.
They were great. I was with them commercially. It was a really small agency. I met with a bunch of people, but for some reason she spoke to me, and two of the acting classes that I think changed. So I've made a living doing commercials for many years. Scary how long it's been.
That's awesome though.
Yeah, it really is.
It is because not a lot of people can say that.
I
you
know. It's sort of, you take it for granted, and then you're like, yeah, not everybody,
Yeah.
I've been able to have insurance through SAG for many years. I'm like, man, that is such a blessing.
Yeah.
But she recommended Carolyn Berry, and she recommended Stuart K. Robinson.
Yes.
And both of those teachers, I remember going to Carolyn, and she was so straightforward,
Blunt.
blunt.
Yes.
I love that about her.
Yes. Very blunt.
She asked me to be in her class, and that really changed from me going into auditions and having no idea what to do to having a technique on how to approach this thing that we were doing, which was commercial acting.
Right. Yeah. Because that's its own thing.
Totally.
Like even from theatrical, like scene study stuff.
Yeah. And what's crazy about it is that I was sort of like, I knew I wanted to make it work, so I would be obsessed about figuring things out within the commercial world since I started taking that class. Like I would look at commercials and be like, "Oh, okay," and I would like practice, and I mean, I would take my homework very seriously. I did the same thing at Leslie Kahn. Like when I go in and I'm really wanting to get better at something, I really put in the work. Like at Leslie's, they give you the script and then they give you the scene. I always read the script, and I did, was like off
Off book.
off book for because it was a like an audition class, and there were people that would come in there and be like, "Oh yeah, I just looked at these," and I'm like.
And I didn't read the script.
We've
And
had
they,
it for
yeah,
2 days.
that not even think about it. They hadn't even read their sides, and I'm like, what is the point of coming here
Paying the money.
and paying the money if you're not gonna like juice it? I guess I just juice everything.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like what makes you great at that thing that you're doing. And it's kind of like if you're going to kind of phone it in, kind of why.
Yeah,
Right.
That's just the way I kind of see it.
yeah,
You're
I mean, you
wasting-
definitely might go through seasons in life where you're like, and you kind of drop the ball. But I think that if that's your like ammo with this, you will be weeded out. Like you will be
Yeah.
weeded out. You will eventually they say the cream of the crop rises to the top.
yeah, yeah. I definitely don't like to phone things in. If not, like I either like
Girl.
either I do I either do them or don't do them. I tend to be
binary that way.
absolutely.
So what then leads you to? So you're doing your thing out here. You're jumping into these classes that are
Booking
inspiring,
commercials.
booking commercials. What leads you to starting your own business with line runners?
So at Leslie Kahn,
Uh-huh.
because I was so dedicated, I would want to be off book. So okay, back it up. So
We're backing it up.
so I was doing commercials, and I was at Leslie's because I wanted to do theatrical, and
Were you there for a while?
I was there for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure, like a couple years.
I think I was there for like a year.
And I think that's what taught me how to really do analytics and analyze scripts. Like I really figured it out there.
Yeah. Well, it's work. If you do the work, it's work there. Like if you're doing what you were doing, there's no way that you're not going to work that
100%.
muscle. There's just
Yeah.
no way.
100%. So I would go there. By the way, when I first started at Leslie's, I was so scared of auditioning and acting that I would try to say my lines and they wouldn't come out. And my accent would come out, and like if the line was like, "Hey, how are you?" I'd be like, it would come out, "How are you?" Like that.
You're
Oh,
like,
wow.
what's just happened
I
to me?
was so scared.
Wow.
And that fear and that anxiety.
How did you get?
Well, the first class, I almost didn't finish it because I was so anxious
Paralyzed.
about it. And
Yeah.
everybody seemed to be so good. And I felt like every time
Yeah.
I went up, I felt so judged. And thank God I decided to sign up for the second class for the ongoing.
Yeah. After the boot camp kind of class.
Well, I took the first one, the comedic intensive, like
Yeah.
when I first moved to LA, and then I didn't do anything, and then I went to the other one, the meet intermediate,
Yeah.
and then I went to the ongoing, and so that's like now, just recently. Well, not recently, but recently, like not when I first moved to LA,
Right.
and then, what was I saying? So then,
So
You
you
were
were
saying
saying-
you're glad that you took up that
Oh,
second
yeah.
class.
so I kind of hated everybody in in that first class because I felt so judged.
Yeah.
And I was gonna have to talk with the teacher, blah blah blah. And I went to the first class, and pretty much everybody was gone from my class, even though it was ongoing. I guess there's times that like
Sure, like it recycles. Or
exactly,
whatever. Yeah.
it was just happens to be one of those. So
Like,
I
yes.
then was like one of the oldest people because I'd just been there for 1 month,
Yeah.
So that put me a little bit at ease. I don't know why.
Isn't that interesting that your experience as a student can be like significantly impacted by your fellow students, not even the teacher sometimes.
Absolutely.
Isn't that
Well,
crazy?
here's the thing I will say. Listen, what they teach there is awesome, and if you can get good at what they're doing, you're gonna learn and hone a lot of great skills. But it's also like an environment where it can be very intimidating
Yes.
because it's like she has her favorites and she has her people that she feels like are gonna be stars. So then she like focuses on them.
And everybody's like really good looking.
It's like
And people
yeah.
are like going out all the
And they have
time.
these Gersh and like AP. It's just like
Yeah.
what? How, I can't even get a manager.
And that's
And
like
I can't even get the words out.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
So yes, it can be very like by default a very intimidating place, and then some people do kind of go, and then it's kind of sometimes like those. It's like finding that balance because I hear people say all the time, you want to be with people that are better than you. You want to be like you want to hang around with people that have money because then you're gonna like learn from them, and then you're gonna have money. But then there's also like the flip side of like if you're the one that's like doesn't have the money,
Yeah.
and then you're the one that maybe isn't the best in class or you're struggling, then it's almost like people kind of don't want to like rally around you at all sometimes.
Well, I think it also depends on your personality, right? Like
Totally.
maybe I'm just the kind of person that like needs to be like feel a little bit like I know a little bit more than all these people, even if it's just the fact that I was there last month. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's
Exactly.
just like, oh, I know this guy for a little bit longer, meaning 28 days or I don't know, whatever.
It's something I totally understand what
I don't
you're
know why I
saying.
made it February, but apparently it was.
Hey, you threw a dart in the board, and we're in February. But I totally understand what you mean. Like when I go into a casting office that I've been, even if it was just like, hey, I had my first audition there last month.
Right.
I instantly feel more confident and comfortable because of
Yeah.
that familiarity. Maybe they know your name and they're like, oh, good to see you again. Just something about that clicks whenever you spend your life as an actor feeling like you were on the outside looking in a lot of
Right.
times.
Right.
So whenever you feel included, I think that's such a transitional period. For a
And
lot
what's
of
also
us.
interesting is that there's times when if I know the session runner, I get more nervous than
Yeah.
when I don't know
Yeah.
anybody.
Totally.
Sometimes I'm like, I prefer to just be around complete strangers and if somebody knows me.
yeah, it's like
so
that
silly.
old adage
Because that's
of,
all expectation that you might think
Right.
people are putting on
Yeah.
you because they know you, and it's like,
Right.
oh, okay.
Right.
exactly. Or if you feel like you've bombed in the past and you're like, oh, they think I'm going to bomb. I'm probably going to bomb. Or,
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, again, I don't know. Some of it makes sense and some of it doesn't, right?
Well, and I think that's the commonality with the actor life is it all changes all the time.
All the time.
And you can be surprised by how you yourself react whenever you think, oh, I got this.
My God, yeah, that class used to stress me out so much. But I was also very, very green in my confidence. Like even for
Yeah.
myself, I just felt like everybody was so much better no matter what.
Yeah.
And so like if you're coming in with that, it doesn't even freaking matter
Yeah.
what your natural ability is. It's literally
Yeah.
getting covered by like all of the doubt.
I mean again because now I see acting so differently. I see the whole business so different. I feel that I remember I went into coach with my friend Yara the other like a long time ago, and because she is on TV shows and stuff like that, I would get so nervous to coach with her. And again, I couldn't make choices, and I really understand how your nerves is such a big thing about you being able to do your job. Like, because now I see the business differently, I just worry about the work,
Yeah.
which is a whole different space than when you put the anxiety on top of it.
Yeah.
And if you can take the anxiety out of it, it is so like you're doing yourself one of the biggest services you can give yourself in terms of acting.
Yeah.
Girl, when I first came back after having Judah, it's very rare, but it happens where there'll be like a commercial self tape.
Mm.
And I got one, and I had went to a friend because she's super close, and I wanted her just to tape me because she books like all day, every day. And I felt like, how the fuck can I get these 2 lines out for M&Ms? Like what? Like I literally felt like I wanted to text her and be like, hey, I just feel really, like I wanted to justify, like it's been a while, like I feel really rusty. Cause she's like, just, I don't believe you. It just, the more that happened, because she's just so like blunt and just so like, yeah, it's just a commercial. Like what, like,
Yeah.
and then for me, it was like, yeah, but I just came back and it's been it's been like almost 8 months that I've even auditioned. Anyway,
sure.
I hear what you're saying, where it's like you have that pressure of like this friend who's like if you don't feel rooted and grounded in you, even owning your mistake, it's such a shittier experience.
And I'm intrigued by, you said you see the business differently now,
Yeah.
and how that perspective can help you kind of rid the extra pressure that you put on yourselves when you go to auditions and stuff. What made that shift, and what is that shift? What's the new way you see it?
So, okay, so even that reminded me where we began with Leslie
Yeah.
Kahn was that. So the reason why I started Line Runners, and it's called Line Runners, is because my original intention with the business was for people to come in and just for me to run lines with them, no coaching whatsoever, just literally
remember.
so you can just get the lines out, because I had such a hard time with my anxiety around it that it would help me to say it out loud and to run lines, because I have a hard time remembering lines. So I need to like run it. I just need to run it. And I was tired of asking my friends to go to lunch and them not want to read it with me or
Yeah.
read it with me 2 times. I need to write, so I was like, what if I just like pay somebody to just read lines with me? And there was no such thing at the time. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. So I was like charging like nothing, like basically nothing.
You're like peanuts.
Yeah. And I started doing that. But then because of Leslie and me really working that muscle so much, I ended up coaching people anyway. And then another part of the anxiety that I think was taken away from the work is because I went to business school, I always thought, oh, you got to be this amazing actor to work in film and TV. Like, theatrical's a whole different animal than commercials, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like anybody can get a commercial agent, but theatricals like this whole other thing. And then when I started doing Line Runners and I started to realize that these people that I'm coaching them and they're going into the room and I'm giving them all these choices that they're like, oh, that's really good. And I was like, whoa, these are like the same people that are going into commercials or like, so that was such an aha thing for me
Yeah.
where I was like, oh, it's not like different than commercials, really.
But
Yeah.
did you kind of feel like, because I feel like it's not that different, but it is, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like it is harder to get that agent. And maybe there's like a business side of it, which I know that you're also doing a class for that, but
So it's much in my experience and everything that I've seen and experienced too, is it's so much harder to get a theatrical agent or manager, and but the work, basically, in my opinion, because I treat commercials differently than most people,
yeah,
to me the work is the same.
I agree.
Yeah.
And it is completely ridiculous that it's so much harder to get a film and TV agent than it is to get a commercial agent. It does not make any sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let me tell you, people that are going out for film and TV, there's some people that have no fucking idea what they're doing.
But that's why I'm like, how the fuck? Like, seriously.
I mean, that opens the eyes to, it is just as much like a game of business and politics as much as it is your skill.
Absolutely.
I think that's the hard part. I think there was a friend that I was like helping with auditions a lot that's like with a pretty great agency, and it would literally be like, oh my god, I used that button you gave me for like that half-hour sitcom, and like I got a call back to producers, and it was like I was in a really bad place. So it was like I had, to be honest, like I had a really hard time, because it was like, it wasn't even like I don't want you to do good. It was just like this sucks. Like,
yeah.
like I can't even get a meeting, but I know that if I had the opportunity, I would do well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, especially when I was just like literally working basically for free, I feel that I had a harder time with that particular aspect than when people are going in and telling me that they're getting callbacks from the choices that I'm making
Yeah.
or helping them with.
Right.
And so, honestly, in general, I didn't feel didn't have a problem with it. But if I felt that there were people that were like had a shitty attitude about going in, or
Yes.
we're not
Right.
doing
Yes.
the work
Weren't
and stuff like
thankful.
that.
Yeah.
I did have a hard time with that in the beginning. I have a different relationship to it now because now it's like my business and I know that's the path I want to go in. So now I don't take it as personal as
Yeah.
I used to in the beginning, but for sure in the beginning I did have a hard time with certain actors.
Yeah, but and again, I think that was like a timing thing.
Yeah.
Where it was also my issue because it was like, everybody has their path, right? And it was like everybody has different opportunities. But if anything, it was just like, okay, once I got like out of my head, out of my ass, and stopped feeling like a victim, it's like that was confirmation for me. It's like, okay, girl, like you can do this, and you are funny, and you have strong choices. You just have to like you keep cracking that nut,
Yeah.
and then see like what that will look like. And but instead of being like, well, I guess I'm just never gonna get that chance, and then because then that does something to your choices.
Absolutely.
Totally. You walk in with no confidence in your choices because you
Yeah.
think, hey, what's the use?
So now that I see so many actors and also now that I'm teaching the business of acting, it's also opened my eyes in a different way. So I feel like I'm learning as well as I'm teaching these
Yeah.
things. Because so Jackie Osario Salem, she is the one who's teaching the class.
Right.
We're teaching it together. And she comes from a business background and she marketing just like me, but she was actually doing it for like 20 years and she was good at it.
You're like, shouldn't get fired from
Yeah,
Macy's.
exactly. And so she started acting not too long ago and she's been able to get into all these offices on her own and also like get a manager and an agent, and it's all because she's really learned the business part.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that she has gone to Leslie's and study, like she's doing the work,
Yeah.
so she can go show up and do the work. But a lot of people have the acting chops but haven't figured out the business part.
Totally.
And there's a lot of things that I feel that us actors don't do. Excuse me, I had to burp. For example, we had Chris from Saint Agency last week in the business of acting too, which focuses around managers and agents and all that stuff. And, a lot of it has to do with like the marketing part and those relationships that you create,
Right.
which I think at times, and I feel like I do this too, or I would go to like a business thing for acting and they give you so many tools, I would feel really overwhelmed.
Right.
I think sometimes it's better to give somebody 4 tools and put them into working them, and then we can move on to the next step.
Agreed.
But I think if you focus on maybe 4 or 5 agents and like really trying to cultivating those relationships, you're more likely to get a manager or an agent than to do what I did years back, which was I would go on IMDb Pro, and I'm not joking, I would spend like, I don't know how many days, but I'd spend over like, I would send like 300 emails.
Yeah.
And I would not get any responses back, even though I thought my email was pretty good. Like it needs to be way more specific than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just, it sounds like it needs to be more strategic.
absolutely.
And I think that sometimes it's like if you're not following up, if you have too many people, if you're not even specific, and even like as an actor, I think there was a couple times that like teachers had referred me. Unfortunately, at the time, I think some of the agents and or management companies that I had went into were bigger than where my credits were at the time, even though my teacher was like, oh, you're doing so great in class, but I also wasn't like 22 about to play 17.
Right.
So they were like, but it was very interesting the questions that they would ask, because they would ask like, well, where do you see your career? And it's like, as an actress, if you're just like, oh, I can do anything and I can do everything.
Absolutely.
And it's also kind of like, well, it's very specific. It's very interesting. A lot of the same level of managers and agents I met with always had the same similar questions.
Yeah.
What are your strengths? What do you see yourself doing? Like, what's your dream job? And if you're going in there and like, unless you are like a super young teeny bopper and you're like, oh my gosh, I can do
Totally.
anything, they're not going to take you serious, because they're
Totally.
also like, you don't know who you are.
Totally. And I also think a lot of these meetings, they just I think sometimes they're just personality meetings.
Yeah.
And I think and I think I've made this mistake as well, and not too long ago as well. So again, this class that I'm teaching and learning from with Jackie, I'm like, oh, I wanted to treat it as a business meeting as opposed to like, let's relate to each other.
Do we get along?
Like
Exactly. And I think that was like, I think back, I think one of my strengths is that I tend to look at something back and be able to pinpoint like when I'm doing the business of acting, I look back at that meeting and I'm like, "Ooh, that's what I made that mistake there." And then I'm able to like use it for future
Yeah.
experiences. So that particular one, I was like, man, I really could have just, I feel like I was trying to be so like, and now that I think about it, I was trying to be cool, but I think my energy was screaming like me, like me, like me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Here I
Yeah,
am.
yeah, totally. And it's like, instead of being like myself, which I think is a much better sell, quote unquote, than, that other energy that I was bringing in.
Interesting.
It's such a difficult job because your business is you.
Right.
And when your business doesn't get hired for that project, you didn't get hired.
But that's what I love about your class, because one of the things that she stresses, and even I have to go back to the sheet, is like, they're hiring you for you.
Love that.
And sometimes I think that even in the past, which is what I'm loving about this class, that I'm hoping to hone in on more, is I think I teeter in playing like an idea, because I think there are different like versions of Nadia, which I can be like, girl, what's up? But then I'm also like, hey guys, like I have this like quirkier kind of more commercial side that
Right.
I think I put on, but it's also me, because I'm like this with certain people. Maybe that I don't know,
Right.
but maybe there's a more authentic version of me.
But that one side that you're saying that you don't feel like it's you, but you are like that with certain people, then when you're talking to them, just choose that person that you're talking to that you're like that with.
What?
So she's saying if you have multiple versions
Right.
and it's dependent on the audience, right? Whatever
Right.
energy they have or whatever relationship you have, just be confident in that version of yourself.
No, that's not what
No?
I'm saying. So you're saying I have this, what's up, girl? And then you have the other one like, what's up? Right. And then you're
Yeah.
like, oh, but that feels put on. But really, I'm like that with certain people. Right. But it feels put on, except for when you're talking to those people. So I guess what I'm saying is that you should, when you're doing that copy and you're like, oh, it's not the what's up, girl, it's the what's up, girl, I want you to think that you're talking to those people that it feels authentic about, and make them the person you're talking to. Is that making any sense?
So like but it's like I'm trying to, because sometimes I can be like kind of ghetto fab. Well, that's usually me, right? But like I think, oh, like for commercials, like you kind of have to like be like pleasant, like versus like I don't know how to explain it.
I think they might like ghetto fab more than you think that they might like ghetto
Yeah,
fab.
maybe, because I'm always like sometimes I think it's so funny, because I had like a Lowe's audition like a couple of years ago that I ended up booking, but I think I was so tired, and I think the way I was like improvising with the girl, I was just like, girl, you better get that shirt, versus like, you know what I mean, versus like whatever I would have said, like like, oh my god, like what a cute top,
Yeah.
or whatever. And then
I mean, we can feel that, right? Like that
Totally.
texture of like reality, especially when they're in a room where everybody's trying to fit into that other thing that is essentially bullshit.
right.
When somebody comes in with that authenticity, you can hear it, you can smell it, you can see it, you can feel it.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So even though you might be like, oh, I don't know, like, it's not like, bring that shit in.
Yeah.
Love that.
I think I've really, in your class, that's been the thing that I've been like itching to like get to, and like really like own that.
Hone.
Hone
Yeah.
that in, because I think it's funny. I went in to see the girls at Allison Horn when I first had Judah. Preston had an audition, and I went in just to like, I had Judah with me, and I was like, hey. And then they're like, oh my God, he's so cute. I was like, girl, I'm so tired. I can't even take it right now. And they were like, oh my gosh, we've never even heard you talk like this. Like, who's this, Nadia? I'm like, and I'm almost like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah,
I'm
you're
just
like,
so
this
tired.
is me every day,
I'm
all
like, this
day.
is me at the grocery store. This is me. And they're just, and I thought, I didn't connect the two because I was just like, whatever. They just haven't seen the side of me because the naughty that they always see is very polished, and I come in with my glasses, and I'm like, hey, naughty, you know what I mean? Anyway, it's been in my mind on and off. But with that said, I love your class because I think that that's something that you really stress in like pulling out of people is their authenticity, which I think is what sets you apart.
And it's what's going to sell you. It's always choose that over everything. And you're not going to get everything, but what you're going to get, like, it's you.
I
Yeah.
love that.
That's you.
And you're also going to build a relationship that is like those casting directors who look at you and go, "Oh, I know her because
Exactly.
of that one audition. She wasn't right for that role,
Right.
but they'll think of you for the one that pops up that's for you."
Totally.
You know, and it's just making clear your intention. I think there's also some pushback, when you talk about like, oh, you want to book it yourself. Some actors are like, yeah, but I need to like be the character, and not the actor,
Yeah.
being the character. But there's the flavor of your essence that colors in the actor that's on the page or the character that's on the page.
Always. Always. If
Yeah.
you can take anything out of this interview, whomever's listening, it's exactly that. I think people want to put on way more than they need to.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I was doing a consultation with somebody the other day, and actors.
What do you mean by consultation? Just for the listeners.
Well, this one she was supposed to coach, and then she decided, she was like, "Oh, I'm not going to coach for this, but I've been wanting to do a consultation with you in terms of headshots and stuff like that."
Got
So
it.
yeah, so that's what we were doing. And in our conversation, it was so interesting to see how much she was putting roadblocks on herself before she even started. And so we have to be very cognizant of the language that we're using. Like she was, I don't know. I was like, okay, so who are you with theatrically? She's like, nobody. And then I was like, who are you with? And she was a really good actor. She was, who are you with commercially? She's like, oh, I'm not sure about commercials because I don't want to get pigeonholed. And I'm like, okay, but do you like,
To make money?
Yeah. Do you like $20,000 in your bank account for working one day, and you can parlay that into like other acting classes and all that,
Yeah.
that headshot that you need? And she was like, yeah, I just, and like there was all these buts. And then she told me that she went to NYU, but she couldn't stay there because of financial reasons, but that she met a bunch of agents, and that she's like, I just haven't followed up because I'm not sure, like, which one's the right one for me. And I'm like, okay,
Whoa.
Girl, just meet them.
I was,
Wow.
so here's somebody who it's essentially there's a lot of stuff that is being presented,
Yeah.
and her own blocks are not allowing her to even see them and hold them, and for her to write that,
Well, that wave of opportunity.
yeah,
For lack of a better kind of description of this, the thing that pops into my head is the culture of like the app dating,
right,
where it's like I like the look, yes, I don't like the look, no. Rarely is there this willingness to be like, you know what, let me meet up and see.
totally,
Like that whole like, I don't know. There's like this weird energy around like I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to get pigeonholed.
right,
And it's like, well, what's the problem with having a meeting and knowing for sure that they're not the right agent for you,
exactly.
or being surprised?
I'm like, yeah, spend a month, 2, 3 months. If it's not the right person,
Yeah.
then move on. But she was without an agent, commercially or theatrically, because she wasn't.
Of that.
Yeah,
Mm.
it was really interesting.
How long have you been doing line runner tapes? Like now? And it's because it's morphed from what it started.
Yeah, meaning from that time.
Yeah, just
God, it probably has been like 4 years or something like that.
and let me tell you, we were talking about this because Preston's like, I got to talk to her outside of this, but because he's got some thoughts for some other stuff that he's wants to pick your brain about. But
Cool.
but what's interesting is I was like, we were talking about you because I was like, she started. I remember when you started advertising line runner tapes, and
Yeah.
it was that. It was like I think it was like $1 a minute. I think it was like super inexpensive.
No, I started doing
Like
$10
$10 or something?
$10 for half an hour.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
that's what it was. And you're like, I'm just gonna run lines. And I was like, it's amazing when you like put stuff out there and you just are consistent and you do the work, like what things can become.
Totally.
And even in that, like how you know, you've always worked. I feel like lately it feels like you worked a lot, but I know that you've always worked, just knowing you through like this commercial world. But kind of talking to you and how you were talking about how the fact that you're seeing it every day, the fact that you're working that muscle every day is also helping you like even sharpen those tools. Somebody who's so seasoned. So it's like you guys like I was talking to a friend of mine who's, you know, she's always had a hard time trying to find a commercial agent or getting out. Like in 8 years, like she hasn't really booked anything. And I think she has a pretty good look. I think she's pretty talented, but it's like, what is this thing that's missing? But I think that, you know, we can get caught up in our own mediocreness, I think, like where we forget about the specific choices that I think I've been doing this for a long time, and even just the 3 weeks I've been in your class, it's like, oh shit, that's right. Like I got to be just even more specific. I got to do the work even more specific, which has been convicting and also encouraging because now it's like just do the work.
It's, I mean, it's such a thing that you can use with everything. It's like
Yeah.
specificity for everything, right? Like from your messaging in your headshots to your work in the rooms, you know? And this is something that I've told a friend of mine who like wanted to do headshot photography. He's a photographer, but he wanted to like parlay it into like the headshot world.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think has um, made me grow from the line runner things is something that can also be used for acting, which is I've been telling the same message since I started doing this, like through social media. Like I post like, "Hey everybody, I'm doing line runners, which is you run blah 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 blah, blah and it's $10 blah blah blah." Okay, great. 2 weeks later, "Hey everybody," you know, I just was very consistent about my
Yeah.
messaging until it like caught fire, and now it's spreading much quicker, but the messaging was always very very clear and consistent. So again,
Yeah.
also with your headshots, even with your, you know, in the business of acting, one of the things that we say is like, don't try to be everything.
Yeah.
Just try to do like three things really fucking well. You're the woman who like goes in and is like the cop that doesn't take shit from anybody, and you're the, you know, nurse, you know, like be very specific and like literally be that, and then you can branch out, which is what I'm doing now with other classes and things like that. But if you're just very clear about your messaging, before people would just see Kaz, now they see Kaz line runners,
Yeah.
right? Because my messaging has been consistent the entire time. When a casting director is going to be thinking, "Oh, I need, you know, that tough cop," you got to keep telling that messaging on like so consistent that
Yeah.
when that pops out, they're going to think
Ooh.
Nadia. They think Preston. Like that is what you want to do, that it's they relate to you by those things that you consistently have been messaging.
It's about like a professional. It sounds to me like it's about a professional, honest look at your skill set, your essence, and then just kind of like chipping away at the marketing. What do you think would be like a good step for someone who's out there as an actor going, I don't know who I am. You know what I
Or I
mean?
think I know who I am, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Um so one of the things that I'm really, again, really learning, cause so I feel like a lot of the stuff from the business of acting, I knew it, but I didn't know it the way I know it now, which is
Right.
like in my body, just like I had skills, but now like they're in, like
Yeah.
there's a difference between knowing and like knowing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so with this one, I'm like, man, headshots are so important.
Yep.
Like you need, that needs to be so on point
Mm.
that there's no question what that means, you know, and that's very hard to figure out. You're right.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a hard time figuring out who I am outside of the commercial world. You know what I mean? Some people, you see them and you're like, oh my God, I know exactly who you are. Other people, it's a little bit more ambiguous.
Yeah.
And I think it's about like figuring out, if it's not as clear, just going in one direction and like leaning into it much harder
Yeah.
and seeing like what kind of response you have with
Right.
that. And a lot of times it's not necessarily who you actually are. I have a client who I saw at a birthday party the other day. And I was just telling her when I saw her the other day, because I'm like, man, I saw you at the party, and I thought she had lost like 20 pounds, maybe not that much, like 10 pounds, thought she had cut her hair, and she hadn't. It's just that when she comes to me, she's playing like the mom that is like warm and she was at this birthday party being her fabulous self, which was like, looking all fly. And I was like, this looks like a whole different person. But guess what? Like casting sees her that way. So she just leans into that super hard and she works in that category.
So yeah, I think that is like that. That's part of it. I think it's kind of like finding that fine balance of like you don't want to almost go too much against the grain if you do try this thing and that's just not what you book. Or that's just not what you're getting callbacks on. That's not what you're, when I first started out, it was really bad. I don't know why I had this like dumb model photographer shoot my headshots because he made me look like I was 5'7" in every mother effing headshot and like with low tank tops. It was just like so crazy. So like I would get called into these meetings and they'd be like, oh, like where's the rest of you? Because you're like 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
And they wanted to like put me in for like the hot girl and this, and it was just like I mean if I wear a ton of makeup and blow out my hair and curl it and wear some but that's not what I feel the most comfortable in anyway.
Right.
But that's what they like young Angelina Jolie. I'm like, really? And it was just like never did I book anything, never did I get called back. And maybe it was because I was uncomfortable. It just that was not my essence at all.
Right.
So I think that in that it's kind of like I love that where it's like sometimes you maybe give up something to casting that you might not even.
But if you were booking in that category, then lean the fuck in.
Yeah.
Even
Right.
though it doesn't feel right,
Yes.
then like whatever.
They'd
You
be
know
like,
what
"Oh
I
my
mean?
God, you're so adorable."
Exactly. But then if you were coming in and they were like, whoa, that's not what you're not matching, then that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But if you were matching according to what they see, then take
More
those
power to you,
checks
work it out.
home and figure that out and whatever. You
That's
know
what
I
I
mean?
think so interesting is, kind of taking from that story that you were talking about, that girl that already is putting roadblocks in for herself. I think that's a consistent thing with a lot of actors out there, especially that thought of, oh, I don't want to be typecast. So I can, yeah, sure, I can do comedy, but I'm also a dramatic actor and I want to be able to do all of that. And it's like, if you really, if you really were to consider who's your favorite actor in whatever genre and you want your career to look like theirs, they did something really, really great for a long, long time until they built up enough clout and money to hold them over to do that one project that set them on a new course.
I mean, Ryan Gosling did some like cheesy, like gladiator fucking show for I don't know how long.
I had never even heard of it.
It was really bad. And what's her name? The girl, she's one of my favorite actresses. She blonde hair, Dawson's Creek show.
Michelle Williams?
Michelle Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, she is a beast.
Yeah.
And she was on Dawson's Creek for God knows how long.
And and just to even kind of the flip side of that, I mean, look at Jennifer Aniston, who did basically a bunch of rom-coms and like Friends, and then she went and did Cake. Did you see Cake?
Yeah.
Which was great.
Yeah.
But it was just like, it's just also like finding that niche of like what she did. And how long did she do what she did as that like lovable, like
Totally. Yeah.
Rachel hair? Everybody was getting the Rachel haircut.
Yeah.
And then she finally was like, now I'm going to do this thing. And I think sometimes it's premature, I guess.
Be scientific. I think it comes down to be scientific. Run a test, measure the results, and then go, okay, that didn't work.
But the thing is that a lot of actors don't want to be scientific.
Right.
And the thing is you kind of have to be as well, right?
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying in terms of it being a business, because part of the reason why I thought the business of acting would be a good idea for line runners is because I do see a lot of people like really working on the craft and some not working so hard on the craft. But some people that are really good and are not getting into rooms that they want to be getting into, or still, struggling in terms of where they fit in. And it's because they haven't treated their business as a business. And you absolutely are a business. It just feels weird because it's inside of you,
Right.
Yeah.
but
You are the business.
and another thing that I've also realized doing line runners is that it takes capital in order to do this business.
Right.
I use, we always have the idea of like the struggling actor and things like that, but the people that I see that are getting ahead and things like that are investing in their business slash career. You do have to have the money to get those headshots and get them retouched and put them up. And if it doesn't work, getting them done again, or going to those
Yeah.
classes and staying in class
And
for a
being consistent.
while.
Yep.
Yeah.
It takes, and the thing is, this is the only business that we think like, oh, you really don't need that much money. But it's like, if I were to be selling, I don't know, these things, and I want to, like, you need a shop
Right.
and you need money to like
Have somebody to make them.
Manufacture.
make
Or
them,
manufacture.
Yeah.
right? And then you need to advertise for it.
Right.
But we think like that because it's a product outside of ourselves. But when it's acting, we're like, oh, and again, I now see it more as a skill, and they think it's talent, and talent is just such a small part of it.
It also reminds me, you just saying that, it reminds me too that like there's often this pressure that we're like, well, we need to find our team, the team that's going to package you,
Right.
the manager, the agent. When it's like, if you come and you've done all the work and you've set your business up, it's like you are taking the ownership of your business.
Yeah.
And now they're just coming onto your business versus like you expecting for them to freaking
yeah.
make your business, market your
Yeah.
business, doing everything with your business.
That's another thing that really sold me on Jackie was that one of the things that she has been able to be successful with agents or with whomever is because she already had all of her marketing on point. She knew exactly who she was. She had all of that so clear that when she was marketing herself to agents, they also looked at her as somebody who knew exactly who she was, and that they didn't have to do all of that work. She had
Yeah.
already done it.
Yeah.
So then it's easier for them to just pick it up and give it to casting directors.
Yep.
As opposed to, okay, let me put all of this work in, and then I'm gonna
Right.
like, she already was like, here it is. I'm putting it on a platter for you. All you have to do is pick it up and put it in.
All you have to just pick it up and pitch it. It's already in a package.
Exactly. So if you do that before and you have all of that clear for an agent or a manager, then they're more likely to want to take you on because that's less work for them.
Right.
And the truth is, if you are more developmental, if you're not coming in with the shit ton of co-stars, guest stars, whatever, unless you're like this amazing ingenue or there's just something super like, wow, we have to have this person. I do think that, like, especially if the agents are new or the managers kind of new, it's like they're going to have to work really hard because not only are they're building their relationships and their networking, but now they have to also take somebody who doesn't have much to work with.
Right.
And they're going to have to work extra hard. So it's like, why make them work even harder if you can at least alleviate some of that work, because they're kind of working for nothing in the beginning
Yeah.
to hopefully get you in rooms, to hopefully where you can go book the job.
So Chris from Saint Agency came on the last class last Wednesday, and that was also really cool to see how he's hustling his own business and his own relationships and growing that. So, we look at agents as these people that are sort of above us and have it all figured out and all this stuff. Like, they're growing their business just like we are, and then casting is growing their business by getting together with directors and like, hire me
to
right?
cast your project.
Exactly. And like the directors are also being like, hey,
Hire me.
hire
Hey,
me.
client, hey.
Exactly. Everybody is doing the same thing, and I it was so cool to see that and sort of not think that they're this, there's, what is that, the Wizard of Oz, the curtain,
The
the
guy,
man
yeah,
that guy.
Now,
the wizard.
something we wanted to ask you about, if you are cool with, is the experience that you had with.
Oh yeah.
What was that?
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. So, yeah.
A learning,
Yay.
something that's good for
Yes.
actors to know about.
Yes. So I have been in this business for a while, and I never thought this would happen to me. But I was with an agency that a friend referred me to, and she'd been with him for about 8, 10 years.
Wow. Okay, that's a
So
long time.
yeah, she absolutely trusted him. And I was booking, and my checks were not coming. They were taking a while to come in, but they were still coming in. Actually, it was sort of like that since the beginning, but because my friend was with them for so long, and I just never really thought something this crazy would happen as it did. I kind of would, and also because they're agents and
Right.
they're sort of above us, that whole thing, I was a little bit afraid to,
Like, hey,
yeah, to
ruffle
ask for
feathers.
my money because I wanted him to pick me up theatrically, so you have all these things where you don't want to ruffle any feathers. And then last year, I also was working and I wasn't seeing my money that often. But I remember he sent me like some checks and they were smaller. And I remember thinking, like,
Huh.
oh, those are small, But I was like, again, kind of not keeping track of my business.
Yeah.
And I spoke to my friend and I'm like, hey, my money, like, I'm not getting checks. Are you getting checks? She's like, no. But she seemed so cool about it that I was,
You were kind of
Almost comforted. It sounds like.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then this year, I remember it was President's Day. She gives me a call and she says, I got a call from another actor that's in the agency and he's owed well over $30,000.
oh dang.
And it was
Whoa.
a weekend. And I just wish it wasn't a weekend because
Because you were like, I need to make some phone calls or
And-
go somewhere there right now.
I'm very proactive
Yeah.
and I wanted to start acting and like that day. And the next day was President's Day, so I couldn't do anything that day either.
Proactive or impatient?
It's
A little bit of
fine
both.
line. It's a fine line.
We walked that line, not and I.
Yeah. Is this being proactive or just impatient?
Yeah. So I went ahead and I started doing all the research, looking for my money. I ended up going to like the payroll company. Like I drove to the payroll company.
Oh
You're
wow.
like, casting crew, here I come. Extreme
Yup.
reach, here we come.
Yup. I was like,
Print
I
out
want to
those
know where
checks.
my money is at. I asked for just a report as to like what's been sent out, what's been cashed. You can ask the payroll company for that information. Now I ask for it once a month just to be
That's awesome.
sure of where my money's at. And when I started to do my looking at everything, I was owed like over $30,000 myself.
Wow.
And you were like, what?
Wow.
Yeah.
No wonder these checks seemed so small.
Exactly. And it was very scary because that's a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
Like a lot of money. That might not be a lot of money for other people, but it's a lot of money
It
for
is.
me.
It's a lot of money for when you're here and you're working, and that's like
To
a
put it in
year's worth of
perspective,
like
that's
rent.
higher than the medium wage for an average adult
You know?
outside.
Yeah.
So that's a lot.
That's
of money.
a lot of money. So God, it was such a stressful time. I just did like a whole spreadsheet on it, and I very kindly was asking. I was like, "Hey, I'd like to get these checks by Monday. My accountant needs it. Didn't get it." And I knew other people were
You sent this to the
agent. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And other actors were talking and they're like, oh, I'm owed 7,000. Oh, I'm owed 15,000. So the more that I spoke to people, the more
You were like, is anybody gonna get their money?
Oh,
that's when I was
gosh.
like, I was understanding how big the hole was.
Wow.
And I went ahead and so my friend who referred me ended up having a one-on-one conversation with him. Like she asked him to dinner.
Uh-huh.
I'm
And
surprised you went. Get the fuck out.
crazy.
He's like, all right, are
Crazy.
you gonna pay for my dinner?
And so,
'Cause I owe
with
a lot of you.
Cassandra's or all these other
Yeah,
actors'
right.
money.
I got you, girl.
So he
Shows up on a
went.
private plane.
He went and he came up with all of these excuses, And she called me and told me the excuses. And I remember like listening, and she was very, since she had like a friendly relationship with him, she was like, I'm going to give him, because he asked for time. But something in my soul, I remember like trying to listen, not with my ears, but with my heart and
Right.
And your
I'm like,
gut?
how does this sit?
And be discerning about it.
And it literally did not add up. For something was like, no, Kaz, this does not feel right.
This isn't a dude who made a mistake and needs time to amend his mistakes. He has been caught, it sounds like.
So he said he was going to send out an email by Friday or something. The email never came. Then it didn't come on Monday. Didn't come out. Then it came like a week later or something like that. And then he gave us a date which he would pay everything by. And to me, I looked at that as the day that I was like, this guy already has his ducks in a row, and he's gonna
Skip town.
skip town or
Yep.
bankruptcy, file for bankruptcy. So I was like, I better try to get my money, all of it, by that. Like, to me, that was my deadline.
Wow.
Like before that deadline.
Exactly, which was like 2 weeks or something.
Oh my gosh.
So I essentially stopped working line runners, and I wrote like a whole so in my Excel spreadsheet, I put, this is how much he was gonna give me by like Wednesday. This is how much he was gonna give me by Monday, whatever. And I remember there were some checks I tried to put some stop payments on that did not, like, they wouldn't put stop payments, so he was able to get more money. So it ended up being, instead of like 30, it ended up being like 36,
oh
whatever.
gosh.
So that the next day I was like, I'm going to your office and I'm picking up those $6,000 that you
Just freaking
cashed.
you just cashed.
Yeah.
I want those. So I went with my mom, who was in town. Poor mom. And he gave me a check, and I thought, oh my God, it's so much
It
easier.
worked.
Like, it's fine.
For
I-
just the 6,000 or
Just for the 6,000. I went to the
Oh no.
bank, and in the bank, my mom said, why don't you make sure that there's enough funds? And I was like, Mommy, no. I was like,
Yeah.
Mommy, you're being, and that was also me not wanting to deal with
The reality
Right.
that
reality
it's
that
possible.
it might, exactly, because I want everything to be okay. That's
Yeah.
also part of my nature, right? The lady was like, oh, I can call the bank. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
yeah, why not?
Yeah. And he didn't have enough money in the account.
Gosh.
So I text him and I say, I was always very nice and respectful, but definitely very direct.
Firm.
And I was, which I'm learning about other stuff. And I was like, hey, there's not enough funds. I'm gonna stay in the bank until
You transfer
you
that shit in.
transfer that
thanks.
money.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I'm sorry, whatever. He transferred the money. We called again. Money was in there. We cash it. The next day, the check bounced.
What?
Wait, how?
So
Because
he probably put it in and then pulled it out. Put it in to confirm.
Okay,
Exactly.
that mother.
That dude's on some serious.
Yeah. So after that, I said, hey, I'd love to, I'm only going to deal with cashier's checks from here on out,
Yeah.
because I was like, I just don't want to deal with this again. So I'm going to be here on Friday to get the other check. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. So I started to show up to his office every day until I got all my money. And the reason why I had to show up every day was because Friday was supposed to, I don't remember, let's say it was $5,000.
Yeah.
He didn't have $5,000. So he would give me,
3,000 or
$3,000.
Hmm.
But then he was, by Wednesday, he was supposed to give me another 5,000. So then,
So it was like the 2 plus the 5.
exactly. So I was there on Monday, and then he would have 700, right? So then I showed up on Tuesday, and, then he was able to catch up for the Friday. But then I was there on Wednesday for that one, and that one was, and
Sure.
there was a day that I waited 4 hours in
Oh
his
my
lobby.
gosh, Kaz, were you like dying sick to your stomach and like
It was the most, it was a very, 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 very stressful time. It was a very stressful time. there were times that I was like, I'm not going to see this money. I'm not going to see it.
And honestly, did you see most of it?
I saw all of it.
You
That's awesome.
probably would not have seen all of it had you not been as persistent.
Right.
No.
Like, there's just no way.
So all the other actors were sending emails, dealing with it through SAG.
Yeah.
And they did not see their money.
Did he end up
Goodness.
filing for bankruptcy? Do you know? Or I don't know.
He has disappeared. I don't know what's happened. But the other thing that I did was I contacted the bond directly.
Yeah.
So agencies are bonded for $50,000 in total.
Oh gosh.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
Which actors don't know. So once those $50,000 are gone,
That's it.
that's it. Right? So
if he owes $300,000 to somebody, guess what?
exactly.
250,000
It's
is
not
not
going
going to get seen.
Correct. So I called them. They told me it was going to take about 14 days in order to get back to me with, I showed them all my evidence. So like I was on that evidence, like checks that were, I was on that like Monday. A lot of
Yeah.
people waited and stuff like that. Like I was like, no. I'm making this my main job.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and I called them, and it was the day that I was at the bank that he bounced a check. So he was like, she told me, she was like, yes, a guy named, I can't remember, Tony's going to call within the next 14 days. So I think 2 days later I called again, and it went to her voicemail, and it said, but if you want to hear the operator. So I was like, oh, let me go to the operator. So I pressed the operator, and it was somebody. And I was like, hi, may I speak to Tony? Because I remembered
Yeah.
the name
Yeah.
Tony. So he was like, Tony who? And I'm like, well, Tony who works with, and I remembered her name.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, Tony. I can't remember his name now. So he picked up, and I talked to him, and he was like, well, let me get your information, but it's going to take a couple days. That day he called my old agent, the person who did this. And that's when my agent found out that I had put in a lien against his
bond?
His bond. And I think that's another reason why he wanted to
Pay
pay me
you.
right away, was because he could have lost his license
Yeah.
had he not, if there was like these things
No,
against
yeah.
him.
But how the fuck did he not think he was going to lose his license anyway after all this?
Sounds like he was juggling a lot of plates and it got out of control, and he didn't reach out for help or anything.
He got in over his head and it all came crashing down
Yep.
at once. Maybe he was like
Exactly.
robbing Paul to pay Peter.
Yeah,
Totally.
So it
But then-
sounds like,
but
I mean,
it's
how
almost-
else is he going to have money
It's like
every day?
it's like
you know?
almost like on a smaller scale. It's almost like if everybody just pulled their money out of the banks now, but like because
That is exactly what happened.
Totally.
That is exactly what
He
happened.
probably had investments. He probably had things that he was using the money for, so that he can build his business or
Or who the hell
personal
knows?
life.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows, right?
Good night.
And when
That's a
he
mini Wall Street. That's literally what happened with the housing
Totally.
crisis.
and I just happened to, sell my house like the
Exactly.
day before all of that shit went down.
You saw that date and you're like,
Yeah,
gotta get my house
he's
gone.
Yeah, when I remember the day that he was like, hey, so you put a lien against my bond,
you're like, yeah, fool.
and I was like, listen, I don't know what's going on. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to let them know every time you pay me, and I would love to take care of this as much as you do. So if we can just do this as soon as possible, that would be fantastic. Because I'm feeling really, really nervous about this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
rightfully
know?
so.
Yeah.
You're not being paranoid. This is crazy.
It was
They
insane.
don't they have like technically like 30 days or something to pay you from the time that they receive checks?
Yes, they do. But that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, that's girl. I mean nothing to like that extent because I think this was more on the advertising end. Like 1 year I found $6,000 and they were never paid. It was never paid to my agents. It was like there were billboards up that and then there was like YouTube videos up that they hadn't paid for that I get screenshots of. Then I had to send it to my agents, and then they had to send them to the production company. Which it's like, as actors, like sometimes you feel like that should be your agent's job, but how many clients do they have?
Yeah.
Right.
They're gonna do that for every client.
Totally.
They're not.
I have a lot of clients. It's like you need to do all your stuff through my system, because if you don't do it through my system, I can't keep track of everybody, right?
Right.
True.
Same thing. So, you again, it goes back to us treating our business as a business.
And hours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, I need to check if there's no my commercial isn't on YouTube. I need to
Yeah.
make sure that my checks I'm getting paid, you know?
Yeah, if you've been released, am I released so that I can start auditioning for this other market? Because sometimes they forget or whatever. I don't know. Like sometimes agents, just little things like that that you kind of have to stay on top of.
Yeah.
You know,
But because it's a dream, because it's like
Right.
we feel so blessed every time we get a job. We don't treat it that way. But guess like
Right.
somebody somebody must think I'm a complete asshole on Facebook, but I posted something and he was like, "Oh, it's so cool to see you still follow chasing your dreams, like blah blah blah." And I wrote him back and I said, "Hey, I really don't mean this in an assholeish way, but like I'm not chasing my dream. I'm just kind of like working and like that's I treat it like that and
Yeah.
like you know,
Yeah.
like we have to stop thinking that we are so lucky to work and like oh my god, like thank you, like no, you're giving a product that is they're able to make money from.
Right.
Yeah.
And you if you treat it with more like as a business and as a job, like I guarantee you the nerves are gonna like dissipate. There's gonna it's just so much there's so much plus side in treating it that way.
you know what's so interesting? I'm thinking about what you said about investing in your business. I don't know what it is about this particular business. I don't know if it's because artists are so like lofty sometimes and we're so like ethereal, like in certain ways, like, oh, we just want to make art or whatever. In some ways like if you're like, I'm gonna go to medical school, like, do you know how much you like thousands of dollars of debt of medical school, like
Yeah.
hours,
Hundreds of
like
thousands.
like you have to spend so much money to get that education. And obviously I do think that there is that like kind of weird mentality where they're like, well, but when I graduate medical school, I'm gonna for sure make that back.
Right.
Where with acting, it's not so linear, right?
Correct.
It is a little different. But I do think that, okay, you can't expect to build a business without the tools that you need, period, end of story. And our last guest that we interviewed, her episode released today, and it was like a two-parter. She had some really good things to say, which was like, you know, it's kind of one of those things where if you're not up to date with your stuff, like your marketing tools aren't up, it's like those are your tools. It's like you have to constantly be like, and do it now. It's like you have to take assessment of your business. And I think to myself sometimes, like, so many actors are like, well, I just don't have the money to take that class, or I don't have the money to take new headshots, or I just got new headshots. I don't want to spend more money on headshots. Or they go with the cheapest photographer, which I'm not saying you have to go with Theo and Juliet, and no offense to them. I've never shot with them, but I've heard their stuff is great, but it's also $1,000 or something. You don't have to go with them. But I just think to myself, like, what other business do we like? That's the one thing that Gayla had said. She was like, you have to fall in love with the process and the business. That it's not. She's like, it's not. She said something. She's like, it's not like climbing a ladder. It's like a jungle gym. Because you're gonna go up and then you're gonna go down and you're gonna go up and you're gonna go down. But if you don't fall in love with that, she's like, you will become bitter, you will become resentful, and you will quit.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I do think that, like, listening to what you're saying and marrying it to what she was saying this today when we released her episode, it's just one of those things where it's like you're not gonna go into real estate and not put like your billboards out. Like you're
Totally.
not. But with
But even the doctor idea, right? Like, okay, fine. If you are in a hospital and you get hired by a hospital, but let's imagine being a doctor, everybody's their own independent doctor, like their
Yeah.
own independent
you have
practice.
your own practice,
You have to have an office.
Right.
You need to have a,
you need to hire staff.
exactly. And we don't treat it like that in acting.
It's
And-
so true. It's like the word that keeps running around my head is operating cost.
Right.
It's like
Great.
your business requires a certain level of money to continue. Because I know that the thing that I struggle with is I'm like, okay, I just need to get headshots. And then once in my mind, I'm like, once that's done, then it doesn't happen again. But the truth is, truth is it is okay, well, when your look changes or whenever,
Totally.
you know, your essence changes or
Yeah.
you make any subtle changes, it's like, that's the operating cost year over year.
I love it. I love you putting it that way.
Yeah.
That's I mean, I'm gonna use that if I can steal that.
Please.
That'd
Girl,
be
take it. Put it in your back
fantastic.
pocket.
Hey, it came from your conversation. So
And the idea of like falling in love with the process, like no joke. I mean, I've been doing this for such a long time, and I've had certain actors come up to me and say, like, I don't love, commercials anymore. Like, how do you do it? And it's like I don't know how to really answer that because like I totally get off from commercials.
yeah.
Like I get off from like auditioning, I get off from like booking them, I get off from like coming up with like ideas and like a moment before. Like I love that process.
But
Because you're
also,
making it that. You know what I
is
mean?
it is
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you're saying that, is that maybe like a moment for reassessment? Is this for me?
What do you mean?
Okay, so like for example, like people that are saying like I don't know. It's like if okay, like I've had friends that are like I want to be an actor. I'm like, cool. What do you love about it? Why do you want to be an actor?
Right.
I don't know. Well, do you love like breaking down character? Do you love like breaking down a script? Do you love like sin in your imagination? Like what like no, I don't actually.
Right.
I don't like building a character. I don't even feel like I'm emotionally attached to like the work. I don't even feel like I'm an emotional person to even be able to like experience that. And I'm like, okay, then
I'm
like
sorry.
what is the job? Like what
but
is it?
I don't mean to be an asshole, but like get the fuck out of here.
That's my point. That's what I'm saying. Like, and I think that people can have moments. I think if you don't fall in love with like, hey, like last year was the best year I ever had, but guess what? This year's been a little rough. And guess what? Like I might have an amazing year next year. But if I am so caught up with like with the negativity of the ups and the downs, then yeah, I do see where it would be so easy to fall out of love with the process because you're consumed with like outcome to
Yeah.
the point where it robs your joy. But then it's like you have to reassess, okay, do I not love the work or is it I'm just in a really bad place that I need to like be more productive and proactive about? And then if that's the answer, I think if the answer is no, actually, like honestly, like we announced last week that I'm pregnant, and like I don't know what my work is gonna be like, as far as like booking for like the next couple months. But
All the jobs.
I knew that I
Gonna
wanted to
book
take.
all of them.
I know what to book all the prego jobs, but I knew I wanted to take your class because I wanted to be in class because I started feeling like just super discouraged. And I'm like, and then I started submitting myself, and I coached with you for a couple of things, like for self tapes. I think it was self tapes. But when I realized when I actually sat down to do the work, no, I actually enjoyed it.
Right.
Like it does something to me. Like, we're talking about an episode that we're going to do a little spectacular kind of like thing for one of our episodes.
Yeah,
where
we're
it's
doing
gonna,
an audio drama.
It's going to be more
bonus
creative.
for
By the way, you
Halloween.
guys are amazing. That like how you guys announced your
Our baby
Yeah.
announcement.
Oh,
Like,
thank
This
you.
editing, he's an amazing
no
editor.
joke. Like I was like, I've seen that shot in movies. Like this, the one where she's like running with the baby, and the one with the umbrella. I'm like, those are shots on like these are classic shots from
Epic
movies.
shots. Yeah.
Girl, we
that-
shot in like an hour.
Amazing.
It was so
Yeah.
crazy.
amazing.
Thank you. Thank
Doing that, even doing that, doing your class, I had to see for myself if I'm going to be sitting in class going, oh my God, when is this over?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it hasn't been that. And so I knew that it's just like a season of life where it's just sometimes you just get tired.
And I'm just like a really good teacher.
That's
And
right,
that
that's
too.
what it is.
It's like I love it. I was like, babe, you got to take this
No,
on.
but
That's what it is.
but okay.
But you
so-
are, but that's
so
why.
But okay, so I don't mean to sound like such an asshole. Like I do mean get the fuck out of here for those people.
Yes.
But you will get burnt out
Yeah.
in this business every so often, especially like for me, I need to get out of town.
Yeah.
And now even like once a month,
Yeah.
I need to, even if that means going to Joshua Tree and just
Staycation.
being in, I need to do that because this is a really intense business, and you do need to have stuff outside of it. You can't be like in it so much that you're not building a life, and I do think that will keep you sane and will keep you turned on with the work. But you absolutely need to implement that. So it's like so challenging, right? Because it's like you need to really be in it, right? But you also need to like really be out of it
Right.
in order for it to all function.
To preserve.
Exactly.
For preservation.
Exactly. So I mean, I don't know that there's different things for people. For me, it's nature. For other people, it's, I don't know, football. I don't there's so many different things, but like find something that when you do feel that, like really get out there, and it does help. It does help you keep sane.
You have to.
Yeah.
Because it's also like if you are the product in a sense and you have
Yeah.
nothing to bring to the table, like you're sucked out of all your creativity, out of like choice, like you don't even know who you are. Like you, I love what you say in class. Is like, how would you say this to your friend? Really, that's how you would say it to your friend? That's how you would say it to your friend. And people are like, oh no, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't buy it sometimes. It's like, that's not how you talk to your friend.
I think that also really happens a lot in commercials because
Yeah.
people get this idea of like how to sell it, and it's like it's never that. It's always talking to your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love it. But if you don't know who you are,
Right.
because you're so like, oh my
What do
gosh,
they
this,
want?
this.
What do they
You're
want?
not taking time for yourself. You're not being present when you are outside of acting. You kind of lose yourself.
You don't
Totally.
have friends.
Totally.
It's like, I don't know how I would tell them. I don't have
I don't
them.
have any
Well,
friends.
what are those friends?
How would I say it to my mom? Okay, this is how. Like, you don't want to know how I'd say it to my mom.
Yeah.
That would not sell this. That would not sell
Hey,
this. Be like,
who
"Mom,
knows?
¿de qué
Maybe
está
it
hablando?"
would. Maybe it would. And as we kind of wrapping down our journey, we love to do like a 5-question and answer portion. So there's 5 questions.
Okay.
They're
The
super
only,
fun.
There's a rule to
Wow.
it. The only rule is don't think about it. Whatever
Oh.
whatever comes to the top of your head.
It's kind of like those personality interviews
love
that
it.
we love from fucking commercial auditions.
Exactly. It's like what is it, Cosmo?
There is no wrong answer, basically.
no wrong answer, and it doesn't even have to be the right answer, and you'll know what I mean by that. But
Okay.
Okay.
take it
I'm
away.
ready.
So, if you could be any, and I think I know the answer, but if you could be any animal in the world, which animal would you be?
My dog,
Hi.
Santiago.
He's
so I could
great.
make out with myself.
Yes.
Yes.
Not really make out, but you know what I mean, like cuddle and shit.
Cuddle. Yes, I love it. 2,
That's weird.
if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, mashed potatoes.
Good choice.
Yes.
potatoes.
Thanksgiving's coming up,
I
girl.
love Thanksgiving.
I don't think I've
Yes.
ever shared this with you. I have a secret mashed potato recipe.
Oh, are you?
It's
What's
bologna, mashed potatoes, and an American cheese on top. It's called a flying saucer.
Babe, I don't know about that.
It is amazing.
By the way, American cheese is amazing.
I know. right?
Everybody's like all fancy with their cheese. I'm like, no,
Gouda.
I
Bring
need
it.
like Velveeta on top of my burger.
Yes.
Maybe 2 of those.
You're like, that's the jam right
Yeah.
there.
It's one
That actually
process
sounds good right
away
now.
from plastic.
I'm totally fine with
Hey,
it.
there's
Totally.
they sell organic American sliced cheddar cheese at, what do you call it, Whole Foods.
They do.
Just FYI.
So good.
Number 3, if you can have any superpower or be a superhero, which would it be?
And why?
If I can be any, these are like the questions.
yeah.
I would say, I like the idea of living forever, but I think I just say that now because I'm this age and it's starting to hit me that I'm not gonna, that I'm gonna
Right.
die one day. But I don't think I'd want that like at a later age. So if I can have a superpower, it would be to I don't know. I don't like this question.
You're like, pass. You're like,
To be able
pass.
to be able to skip any question you don't like.
Yeah,
That's
what
a
about
great
that?
Great.
superpower.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess just like to be okay with everything, even negative or positive. Just like
the power of
take it-
positivity.
Yeah, but like really for
Yeah.
real, not just like
I have to talk myself
everything's
into it.
okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's like
The power of contentment.
yeah, be completely content and understand that everything's for like the higher power and be in gratitude at all times.
That's actually
it.
a pretty good one.
Yeah, I
That'd
think
be pretty
that's
So that's a
good.
pretty good one. Celebrity crush.
Good. Ooh, Ryan Gosling.
Oh,
always.
even though he made a shitty movie or whatever it was, a TV
Girl,
show.
everybody's done a
whatever.
little some.
Girl,
That's
come
right.
on. Yes, they have.
Yeah.
I don't. Let's not pull out my short film
But
that I
you
did.
know what? I think I'm gonna take that back because Ryan, like, he's been getting on my nerves lately, even though he hasn't done anything. That, like, in my imaginary, like, we've been in fights and shit. I think Keanu Reeves.
Oh no
Nice.
way!
Yeah,
That's
Keanu Reeves.
awesome.
I love Keanu Reeves. Wait, I have one more. There's this guy from what's that show? The million dollar listing New York in Bravo.
What?
I'm gonna have to watch that today.
Oh, we'll
I
put that on
am
while we break down.
obsessed with him, but he just like got married and had a baby and all
Oh
that
God,
stuff.
would you have
So
to go ruin
whatever.
everything?
I know, but he is literally the epitome of what I love in a guy. It's like, bing, that
Oh
guy.
my gosh.
Anyway, so Steve Gold.
Okay,
Steve
I'm gonna
Gold
look
and
him up.
Keanu Reeves, which by the way, they look very alike. So
Ah, girl, I
whatever.
gotta look him up. About to
Anyway.
Google it. Last question is: if you were not in this industry,
Mm-hmm.
what would you be doing for work?
Ooh. Um. Well, uh I would love, so I do a nonprofit like a Golden Shoes Project,
Mm-hmm.
which is street art installations to create awareness about violence going on in our communities through a street art installation that's gold shoes. And so each pair of shoes represents one life lost to violence.
Mm.
Um, I think if I could like make a living from that and do street art installations, it's such powerful work. I would love to do that. That'd be amazing. And I also love journalism.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think if I could go back instead of going to FSU and doing business, I would have majored in journalism.
That's
I think that's
awesome.
yeah, I like that. I don't know. At the end of the day, it's all storytelling in one way,
Oh,
shape, or
for
form.
sure. For
So,
sure. That would be. That's a. I think that that's a very good. I don't know. I feel like today.
Parallel biz.
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. For sure. For sure. For sure.
I love it. And as we end this awesome convo, what if you were listening to this
Mhm.
podcast and you were either in a different city, different country, but you
Mhm.
had the aspiration, I want to be an actor, I want to move to LA, I want to do this thing, I want to make it my business. What would be a piece of advice that you would give yourself or someone else who's listening currently?
Like when you first started.
I would say stop bullshitting.
Mm.
Like do the work. Um it's not that hard. Just literally concentrate on the work, put one foot in front of the other, and don't be so scared. And I would deal with my anxiety more than anything. And yeah, I think I would just like that girl with the roadblocks, like I would say like that's all mental stuff. Like put that aside and just do the work. One foot in front of the other. With anything in life, I think you just got to put one foot in front of the other, and it's gonna take you somewhere, as
Yeah.
opposed to waiting for the ducks to get
To-
in a row. It's like put one foot in front of the other. Sometimes it takes you in a whole different journey. There's
Yeah.
so many different ways to be in this business.
yeah.
Like I feel that I'm in this business acting, but I've also like parlayed it into another part. Some other people have parlayed it into being an agent or a headshot photographer. There's still so much storytelling and so much things to do within the business. Put one foot in front of the other. You don't know where it's going to take you, and sometimes that takes you back to your original thing, which is acting.
And you know what's so cool about that? And I know we're wrapping up. Is that I think that in order to do that, sometimes you got to let go of ego
100%.
because I think imagine if you were like I think about conversations we've had and even conversations that I've had like with myself because I'm crazy years ago where it's like imagine if you were like no I don't want to start running lines with people I don't want to be like people I'm going to be known as the girl who's like running lines and I'm an actor like I don't or I'm not like I'm not I don't want to be like known as an acting coach because that's going to like it's such an ego thing to kind of be like that
Totally.
people can only see you as one thing versus like you're both you're doing both and they're all in the same industry and
Well, for my conversation, my conversation was, why would anybody listen to me?
Yeah.
Was what I would say.
Mm.
I'm like,
Mhm.
why would anybody listen to me? Like I'm coaching this person that went to NYU. Like I literally was coaching somebody from NYU, and I remember like pooping in my pants because I'm like, what the hell do I have to say?
Yeah.
And you may surprise yourself more than you know, especially if you're somebody who is like sharp and really has good intentions and like does the work to try to figure stuff out. Um, yeah, the ego will play so many tricks on you. And the one last thing, and I promise we
Yeah.
can go. But the thing about going in a different direction, I was I was doing line runners. It was fine. I was sort of doing it as a side thing. And then I decided, I said, fuck this um business, because I had a commercial where like I was I was in the in the fitting, and all of a sudden I felt like something was going wrong, and then I got wind that they were recasting as I was in the fitting.
What? Oh,
And I was
girl.
like, oh my God.
Welcome to
And
Hollywood.
yeah, and I was like, oh my God, am I? I needed this job. Like,
Yeah.
it was a year that I needed this job. And I'm not joking. It was such a shitty feeling to be in a room and like I knew that they were talking about me. And it
Yeah.
was because I didn't look old enough.
You're like,
Yeah.
some white in my hair.
Well, I knew because they brought a makeup and hair person for the fitting, which I thought was so weird.
Yeah.
And it's because they were making me older, but I ended up looking like a 1950s housewife instead. They ended up casting me as the pharmacist, and they recasted my part. So that I ended up getting the job. But it was such a like I remember driving home crying and being like, fuck this business.
Yeah.
So I decided to do social media, and I started to go in that path.
Like take a class or something?
I took a class to do like social media and social media managing and all that stuff. I was like, I don't want to do this business anymore. I was just like, that's it. But I was still doing like line runners, and then I started implementing some of the social media stuff onto line runners, and it like really helped grow it. Like it was already growing, but all of a sudden it became like more people found out about me, and the one decision to like say, F this business, I'm gonna go in a different direction, ended up bringing me even closer to this business more than ever before.
Yeah, man. You came back with like swinging too.
And I was like, I was trying to leave this place.
It was like, no, Hollywood was like, no, girl, we need you.
It was so crazy. And now, and now I'm in it more than ever, and like in a path that I feel is right for me. And again, it was all from putting one foot in front of the other, not necessarily in the direction, like in a whole different direction. And sometimes you just don't know where you're going to end. And it may be exactly where you need to be.
Yeah, man.
I love that. Put one foot in front of the other. If you love something, let it go. And if it loves you back, it's going to come back harder than ever.
Is that how you say it? I don't know.
I love saxophones. Yeah.
Kaz, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time and
Of
joining
course.
us today.
Yes, thank you.
If our listeners want to get a hold of you, follow your journey, sign
Yes.
up for your classes, how do they do so?
LineRunnerTapes.com and Line Runner Tapes on Instagram. So thank
You guys do it. You will not regret it.
And of course, we're going to tag that in your show notes. All you got to do if you're listening on iTunes, swipe up. You'll see her link directly so you can get to know her and to join us in the revolution of running lines and getting coaching.
And getting coached. She does virtual coaching, yeah?
Yep.
So you guys, if you need help with them auditions, you know who to reach out to.
And one foot in front of the other. Forget about everything else. Do the work.
Do it.